Today, I want to talk to you all about how to stand up the trusses on the Avrame Trio Series houses, just like we did. My name is Rob from Canadian A Homestead, and this is Our Avrame Home. I will be completely honest with you and just tell you that the first truss for us was the most challenging one because we really didn't know what we were doing. But thankfully we had a telehandler on site that was able to lift the truss up all the way to the very, very top. Ideally, if we were to do this again, we would have had access around the entire slab of our house to be able to drive the telehandler. Unfortunately, we didn't because of where our septic system is placed and just the forest around us. And so what we were able to do was to stand that truss up and walk it slowly but surely by lifting it up all the way to the back of the slab. We'll also notice in that clip there is that at the top of the truss where the collar tie is, we put just screwed on a 2x4 with one screw going through it onto a bunch of 2x4s going all the way down to the ground that we could use as a pivot point to balance it. We actually found that the weight of the truss wasn't the difficult part. The difficult part was how tall it is at 25 foot 8 inches from the concrete slab to the top of the peak, and they really wanted to sway. And so because we had the telehandler on site, we were able to lift it up, use that pivot point so it wouldn't fall over, and with 3 or 4 people on either side of the truss, we were able to just like lift it up and slowly but surely inch it all the way to the back of the A-frame. Once we had the first 4 trusses stood up at the end of the first day, we took some time to install all of the blocking between each of the trusses to give it some support. They were really wanting to sway back and forth in the wind, so we made sure we paused to do that and learned that it's important and necessary to add bracing, like cross bracing, as you go along. And so on the second day when we were lifting up the trusses, those next 3, we made sure that we tied them into the existing supported structure and made sure to add a bunch of supports between each one of them. But we followed the same basic way of lifting them up. We used the telehandler to stand them all the way up, walk them toward the place where they were actually going to sit, and then that's what we did. But by the time we reached the end of the slab, I didn't have any more favors to call in, and I was working by myself. And so what I did for that is a combination of things of using the telehandler, but also using our quad that has a winch on the front of it and a ratchet strap. I was able to use the existing structure as a pulley to put the strap around and use my winch to stand up the bottom parts of the A's without the tops assembled. After I had all those stood up and I'd installed the bottoms, I then used the telehandler again to stand up the top of the A up on top, and by myself was able to position it on the inside of the bracket on either side of the A. I used a ratchet strap to pull them in so that they were fitting perfectly flush with the existing bottom part of the truss, and was able to fasten it that way by myself. There was one other way that we did it, which was for the middle section of our house over top of our dormers. We had to lift those 2 tops of the trusses up there, couldn't get the telehandler to it, and so what we actually did was with myself and another friend up on top, Katie helped to slide that truss up to us, and we just basically, with manpower and woman power, lifted it up into place on the house. Well, that's how we chose to stand up the trusses on our house as we were building it. I don't know if everything we did was the easy way to do it or the natural way to do it, but we've never done this before, and it's how it worked for us. If I were to do it again, I'd probably consider assembling all of the trusses off to the side of the slab and renting a crane or hiring a crane for one day to come and just lift them all up one by one. It's important to remember that we are a slab on grade, and so for us, we had to drill out and anchor each plate as we went along. We thought about trying to pre-drill all those holes, but we wanted to make sure everything lined up perfectly, and so we had to wait, which would have slowed down the crane process. But if you were to build your house on the typical Avrame design with the strip footings, where you then build a deck and then you put the trusses on top of it, probably be really fast to do that using a crane. Well, that does it for today's video about how to stand up the trusses, but I want to hear from you. How would you have done it? Depending on what equipment you have available or how many friends you have that you can call a favor on. If you were to build this house, how would you have stood up those trusses? I'd love to hear from you. See you next time.